Almost every great show has an equally great pilot episode, but SpongeBob's did it kinda differently, and that's exactly why it's perfect. See, most pilots for shows like Futurama, Gravity Falls, or even a story about a chemistry teacher that turns into a drug dealer, they all tick every box on the list of what a great pilot's supposed to be, as well as pushing the story off toward the adventure it's going to become. Meanwhile, SpongeBob's first episode is just an 8-minute story about a guy who wants a job as a fry cook, gets the job in the most ridiculous way, and goes home exactly who he was when he woke up. And somehow, none of that stops Help Wanted from being the perfect first episode for a very strange little show about underwater life. So, why does it work? Why is one of the most beloved pilots in cartoon history the one that didn't really follow the rulebook? If you grew up with this show, you know exactly how an episode is gonna open. A French narrator talking about the ocean like he's filming a nature documentary, panning over the conch streets, and then he points at a pineapple and tells you, kind of defensively, that yes, of course the sponge lives in a pineapple. What did you expect? Then we meet our sponge, just waking up from his sleep, then working out with a barbell that's held up by 2 stuffed animals, and basically getting ready for his big day, to apply for a job at the Krusty Krab. And so, right before the 2 minutes mark, we get to the first problem in this story. SpongeBob doesn't feel like he's up to the task, despite screaming, "I'm ready," all morning.
I'm ready, I'm ready, I'm ready.
I can't do this, he says, and his best friend Patrick gives him his weird pep talk, and that's enough to push SpongeBob to enter the Krusty Krab. And hold on to that, by the way, because we'll be coming back to it. Inside, he meets the 2 people who will spend the next 25 years dealing with him. Oh joy. Squidward, who realizes instantly that this yellow guy will bring so much inconvenience in the future, and Mr. Krabs, who at the time fully believes his one and only employee, so he sends him on a fool's errand to go and get a hydrodynamic spatula with port and starboard attachments and a turbo drive. However, the second he leaves, the wave of anchovies come. 5 buses of them. The Krusty Krab immediately gets swallowed by a sea of customers, escalating the situation in less than a minute. But just like the hero he is, SpongeBob comes flying back in with the spatula that, as it turns out, was real, only one in stock. Not to mention, he single-handedly feeds the entire mob without any guides or recipes from Krabs or Squidward, and pretty much saves the day. Of course, Krabs hires him on the spot, and the episode ends with Patrick wandering in to order a single Krabby Patty. 8 minutes and 18 seconds. That's the whole thing, which is a little strange when you actually stop and look at what happens in it, because the more you study how a first episode is supposed to work, the less sense it makes why this one is so good. Now, if you asked how a perfect pilot episode is supposed to look like, the answer will always differ depending on what kind of show it is. Each has their own unique characters, settings, tone, and crisis at hand. But in general, and for the sake of arguments of this video, there are at least 5 things you wanted your pilot episode to do. 1. Introduce the characters and the world they live in. 2. Set up the relationships between each character. Who likes who can't stand who, and maybe who is being indifferent towards who. 3. Show you the tone of the show. Maybe it's funny, scary, sad, weird. Tell me now, so I know what I'm watching. 4. Set the stakes and hook the viewers. Give me a good reason to come back. And 5 is to serve as a preview of the philosophy of the show. Not the plot, the thing it's actually about underneath. So as it stands, Help Wanted clears the first 4 without trying. The world is really distinct from any other shows right from the get-go. We're underwater with a French narrator showing us Bikini Bottom like a wildlife special. There's 3 weirdly shaped houses in a row and a whole town humming in the background. For the relationships, you could tell everyone in this episode has a different mindset just from their first line. Squidward sees SpongeBob coming and visibly dies inside. Krabs sees a wallet he'd rather not open. Patrick, being the slow, weird, but positive best friend, and tells SpongeBob that he's about to see one of the best days of his life. And it's crazy to think that this is practically the engine of the entire series, established before anyone's touched a Krabby Patty. The tone itself is pretty much self-explanatory. It's a comedy show, a huge cartoonish, weirdly nautical, musical even, and completely committed to how silly it is. You know what you signed up for. As for the hook, you're watching a video essay about this episode 25 years later since this episode aired, so it's safe to say it hooked someone. Which leaves us to the number 5, the philosophy, the big one. And this is where Help Wanted does something that, on paper, should have broken it. So when we talked about a show's philosophy, it usually lives inside the main character, and most of the time, it shows up as a lack. You know, something about the hero that they're missing inside of them. Maybe it's respect or freedom, a purpose, a life that doesn't really mean anything. And the first episode is the moment that starts to change. You will watch the pilot and understand what the journey is about, that this person is going to become someone later in the series. SpongeBob doesn't have that at all. He wakes up in the first 30 seconds already the happiest he will ever be. He's not running from anything. There's no wound from the past, no emptiness, or even quiet sadness the show is going to slowly heal. He just wants his dream job, and then he gets the job on the very same day. And he ends the episode exactly as whole as he started, just with a sailor hat on. If you just take those descriptions without ever watching any of the show, that sounds like a flat character, or a pilot episode with no arc.
Who made a spatula out of toothpicks and woodshop?
I did.
And remember that weird pep talk? Patrick doesn't tell SpongeBob he can do it, as in he could change to be a better version of himself. He reminds him of who he already is. First words, "May I take your order?" Made a spatula out of toothpicks in a wood shop. This guy was a fry cook already before he ever walked through the door. There's no becoming here. He was born complete. So if the philosophy isn't inside him, where is it? It's everywhere around him. Help Wanted actually gives us a good look at a collision that will never stop happening. You take one creature of pure, unkillable sincerity, and you drop him into a world that is fundamentally bizarre. Squidward, who finds his joy offensive. Krabs, who sees his eagerness as something to exploit. A mob of anchovies that just want to be fed. And SpongeBob meets all of it with the exact same answer, with a total, genuine, slightly unhinged enthusiasm. And somehow, that's enough. The fool's errand turned out to be the kind that saves the day. So, for 25 years, we get a story of a good heart running straight into a world that doesn't deserve it, and somehow coming out the other side intact. The pilot isn't setting up a character who will grow into something. Rather, it's setting up a fixed point.
Cheers for SpongeBob! Hip hip!
All right.
And so, when your hero doesn't have an arc to protect, you're not locked into anything. You don't have to drive toward a destination, which consequently also lines up with the theme of the whole show in the future. By focusing on the character's uniqueness rather than a continuous lore-heavy plot, you can make a story for just about anything in this show. An episode about someone forgetting how to tie shoelaces, graveyard shift, band geeks, and even a weird existential journey on SB-129. Almost no one ever stops and gets confused asking, what is this show even about? The story always jumps around doing whatever they wanted that day. Because we all know unconsciously, this is not about a big journey to save the world, or even about someone finding his true ideology. It's just a compilation story about a bunch of weird friends who do every bit of weird stuff whenever they decide they want to. Like a Sunday afternoon as a kid, where the plot was just whatever you and your friends decided to play next. So no, Help Wanted doesn't have an arc. It was never supposed to. Asking SpongeBob to change in his own pilot would be like asking the ocean to. He's not the one who's going to move. He's the thing everyone else moves around, and that is the philosophy, stated perfectly in 8 minutes on the very first day. Most shows spend their pilot promising you someone's going to change. Meanwhile, SpongeBob spent its pilot promising you someone never would, and then kept that promise for 25 years. And that's the thing about this show. The good stuff is almost never where you'd expect it. Sometimes it's the arc that isn't there. Sometimes it's a single line nobody thought about twice. Last time it was something dripping down the walls of that exact same restaurant. A throwaway detail on a night shift that the show showed you and then completely moved past, until you actually stop and look at what it is. You can't unsee it. That one's right here. Go watch it next. I'll see you on the next dive.